Man, like I was not looking forward to this voiceover simply because it felt like it was just another week to me. Like I was kind of dreading it, in fact, in that like what am I going to talk to these people about this week? It really was just that. And despite the fact that I am on a program right now where things are progressing quite rapidly, I'm aiming for linear progress to add reps, add weight, basically week after week. Still, in my mind, I'm like, this was just such another week. And then the reality hit me that because this is all going through my head like mid training, was the fact that most of your weeks, if you do this long enough, that's just kind of the vibe they have. They're just another week. And oh, so check this out. Just a little quick tangent. Check out the pimple on the left hammy. That's like my first off season pimple. I think that means that we've officially have gone bulk mode. So anyhow, yeah, it would have been pretty rad if that thing like popped via the blood pressure under the front squat. But no. Besides the grossness, it was just another week. Yeah, definitely some highlights. Like for example, I got 315 for a very chill set of four. And for those of you guys who do follow along, a few weeks ago I had a really crappy day at the Barbell Brigade. It was right around the LA Fit Expo. Traveling all day, I was supposed to test on the front, and I was hitting about the same weights as today, but for less reps, and I was barely making it. So no, I'm seeing week to week progress. Things are slowly climbing up, but it just really just felt like another week. Like there was nothing in my mind that I would consider a highlight. It's just feel like a bodybuilder in transition. But again, that is the truth, is that if if you want to be so strong, if you want to have this kind of physique, you're going to have a lot of days where there's nothing really glamorous about the process. Like you just go in and you do the work, and that's where you really have to love the work. Yeah, people want the physique, but they don't necessarily want to do the work. And like the work to me is that's where so much of this is what I find fun. This is what I look forward to. That's been one of the hardest parts about training just 4 days a week, is that I love coming in here and doing this. And like don't get me wrong, like I'm super focused when it comes to to what I think about, especially mid set during my trainings. Like I it's like a competition to me. Like I think about how this is going to make me better come next time I hit that stage, and how much I want to progress in this body part, right? But in between sets, I have like a lot of time to myself where I love being in my own head. And yeah, it's kind of sort of where I got to that point where I'm like, man, like I have nothing to talk about. This is just another week. But the reality is that for the most part, a lot of the work that goes into this is gonna feel just like that. You're just in there, not. I'm not saying going through the motions necessarily, but it's slow, and the way it works is you're just chugging along, you're pushing, and then eventually something gives, and you have a little spurt in progress. But a lot of it is just kind of like this. It's just me alone in the gym, working my butt off on my working sets, and then in between sets, going through these periods of like mental, yeah, like going through all my days, thoughts and emotions, and it's like a mental detox. And I look forward to that portion of it. And yeah, a lot of my good ideas and a lot of my um, alterations to my current perspective come from my time in the gym. So yeah, no, there's just a point when it comes to training where you're a noob and you're in there, and initially like things are just moving, you're progressing, and the purpose to every training bout is to be a little bit better than the last training bout, and it kind of is that way for a while. And then eventually it gets to the point where you've been doing this long enough. Like here I am a few months away from like my 19th year training, and it's more than just that. It's something where, man, even if and yeah, we're just talking over footage. But so I hope you guys don't mind this. Actually, this next set here was a highlight. Before I continue off with my tangent, this next set was a highlight, kind of, sort of. 120s were supposed to go up for a set of six. but I got trigger happy. So usually I wait for Leanna she waits for my count, we get it up together, and that way I get to actually start with an eccentric prior to the concentric. But I rolled back, they felt super light, and I just kind of went with it, and we ended up having a miscommunication, totally my fault, and we kind of pressed them together. And I'm sure I would have been able to get like 6 reps in all had it just been, yeah, had I just agreed to get it up on the first one. But again, it's just I didn't expect it to feel that light. I got excited, pushed it up. Technically, I got 5 reps, but I helped out a little bit on that first rep. But yeah, so this was probably one of the highlights this week. But no, for the most part, it was a lot of just like reflecting on yeah on like what my training is to me, and why it is that I love showing up. And yeah, part of it is being progressive, but it's also, yeah, it's a lot, it's actually as much as it is physical exercise, it's also mental exercise for me. But no, the training week went well. We're progressing the way I plan to progress. I still feel fresh. I still feel healthy. I feel that, yeah, the last 2 weeks on this decently linear approach, it's not going to be linear, but I'm aiming to make it as linear as possible, because again, even accelerated progress in my case isn't that accelerated at all. But no, things are going well. But yeah, no, the training 4 days a week has definitely been, yeah, I definitely look forward to my training sessions, but at the same time, I love to train, and like sometimes I'm like, shoot, let's just get a 5th day. But the plan is to stick to 4, and the amounts of volume that I'm using right now are much lower than in past years. And there's a few reasons for this. I think, firstly, like I go back to when I first started weight training. Like one of the reasons that I stuck with it is because I had a response to lifting weights that was far greater than any of the people that I started training with. That's why they all kind of bailed out, and I stuck around, because I was getting a lot of positive adaptations. For whenever I worked hard at it, it seemed like things would just kind of naturally happen, and they would happen at a pretty accelerated rate, and it didn't stop being that way for a while, almost like the whole first year. So yeah, like I'm like, hey, how about we just try to drop the dosage of the stimulus just a little bit, see what we can get away with, and see if it works. And if it works, we'll just keep riding this until it doesn't. And if it gets stuck a few times, hey, let's just stay there a bit longer and see if we unglue and things start to progress again. So it's very similar to the perspective that people have when it comes to cutting calories on a diet. Like if you could lose weight on 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories, and both for some reason kind of unrealistic, both kind of worked pretty similarly, which one would you pick, right? And it's kind of the deal with this, in that, hey, if I can do a little bit less work, but we're still progressing, I'm putting on size at at a rate that's to be expected from me, and I'm making progress in regards to my lifts, then shoot, we might have something here, and it's something worth running with it as long as we can. And this goes back to the being patient, and I think that's going to be the biggest difference between this off season and previous off seasons, is just the fact that I think the fact that I wouldn't even say just a little bit, I'm quite a bit more patient than I was, say, 5 years ago. And if I guess if this works, there's a few things that I can see coming from this in the long run. And I think the first one is that I guess, yeah, I'm in March I turned 35. And I think for most other sports, that's kind of like where it's like, dude, it's going to start, if it hasn't already, you're going to start sliding back. But in bodybuilding, it's like I'm the equivalent of a 20-year-old running back, where it's like, okay, this is the place where basically your elevators meet. And what I mean by that is you have a mental elevator, and then you have a physical elevator. And as time progresses, the physical elevator goes down, and then the mental elevator goes up a floor, and eventually they kind of meet at like the highest floors they'll ever meet. And then eventually the physical one keeps going down and the mental one goes up. and that's really frustrating. But I'm getting to the point where they're going to meet very soon here when it comes to bodybuilding, and yeah, I want to have as many productive years as possible, because I know that there will be a point in time where progressing or being a progressive athlete is just no longer going to be in the cards. I dread that day. So if I can extend that by 5 years, if I could have 5 more progressive years because I took the right steps when it comes to taking care of myself right now, like, I'm totally with that. And I see that as a worthwhile investment. And that's one of the reasons that I want to see, hey, what can I get away with? Another thing that kind of led me to come out of the gates with this approach. So, firstly, yeah, just the fact that I've post prep things just happen quite easily. It's like, don't get too excited. It should be this way. So, I knew I was in a position where I wouldn't have to work too hard to regenerate a lot of my former adaptations, like mostly like lost strength and muscle that will happen to some extent during a contest prep. So there was that bit, but then also this is probably the best I have felt in about a year when it comes to my athlete health, right? And I'm like, hey, but there might even be better. So let's go ahead and do this training 4 days a week with slightly lower volume, see if we can give connective tissue a chance to get even better. And if it means, who knows, like here's the thing, if it means like I backslide a little bit during these next few weeks, I'm cool with that, because then I'll have this like really fresh, ready to go body. And if it means like this like crazy hot streak 6 months from now, I'm totally with that. So, yeah, a lot of this is just, I think now more than ever, like I try to think outside of the training day, outside of the training week. I'm much better at not being emotionally attached to my own situation, and yeah, just thinking bigger picture. Because again, like when I think about it, it's like, dude, yeah, you're 35, but in this sport, this is where shit gets good, dude. And what you do today is really going to affect what you do tomorrow. And I would encourage a lot of you guys out there to start looking at it from that perspective. And especially if you love this, that it's not super exciting all the time, that most of the time you're just going to be going in there and getting the work done until like something breaks free and you make some progress. And once you look at it from that perspective, it's easier to remove a lot of the emotional impulsivity that sometimes we are a little prone to when it comes to this. So speaking of which, I told you guys I'd go into stealth mode and I was supposed to be all covered up and this and that. But one thing that I wanted to do was really show you guys that, I still look like I'm in pretty good shape, but I no longer look like I'm made out of plastic, basically. And another thing that, like, the big purpose of this vlog, and that's where the name came from, like, bulking in the year 3000, it's not because we're necessarily going to be using a ton of methods that are just like are futuristic. A lot of it has to do with the fact that people will ask you upon completing a season and starting an off season, when do you plan to cut? When are you going to compete next? And the answer, just for funsies, was always like in the year 3000. Like, we're going to do it for that long. And so that's where that came from, is the fact that we are going to be extra patient when it comes to this one. A few things. I think first of all, I want to set a good example for a lot of the younger bodybuilders out there. And we're going to put on some weight. We're going to do it for a while, and hopefully cash in on something good. So I definitely want to do that and show you guys via this log. The other thing is going to be the fact that when I look back at my history, the best progress I've always made, the most predictable progress, was somewhere between 185 all the way into the low 190s. Things would just work, but that also used to be like the top end body weight for me in the off season. So I would bail out after being there for like 3 or 4 months, and I want to see what happens if we spend twice the time there, triple the time there. We'll see. So that's the plan. But yeah, I'm enjoying the off season. It's been great. It's been very short, but it's been great, and we're just showing up and doing the work. And I especially love days like this. So with no deadline in mind and all the energy in the world, training with my buddies again. When I was prepping, it was one of those things where it's like, you have like an hour's worth of good energy. So you get in there, you take care of the work, and a lot of the social workouts were just slowly over time just less and less common. So on this day, I got to train with both my friends, Steph and Tyler, and that was really good to just be able to, have enough energy to BS, and have a good time with the crew. And this is actually the first time I looked at these. So it's funny. My back was on fire from playing tug with my dogs a few days prior. But it's funny, if you know how to correctly position your spine and brace, it's like I can still like fucking hip hinge. So this lift, super promising. I'm super excited to see where this is at in a few months and maybe make this more of a acceptable choice for your main hip hinge deadlift type movement. But no, just been having a wonderful time. That's my boy right there, Tyler, who's gonna be really, really strong in the very, very near future. Bodybuilder going powerlifter, and we all know how that is. A lot of us have done that, and maybe at some point I will do a meet, but it's not until we get like freakishly strong where it's redundant that I'm just only doing these lifts in the gym. So both Steph and Tyler have amazing technique, and that's honestly something that I look forward to with this off season is kind of getting reacquainted with a lot of the barbell movements. When you're in the middle of prep, like it's hard enough to just do the work and to sit there and I guess babysit movements that are technically so demanding and then always changing when you're prepping, as like your leverages sometimes change week to week to week. It's just kind of nice to get back into these things and again just like have these BS sessions, not BS sessions, like we definitely vibe off each other, but when it came time to prep, it's like eat your meal, 30 minutes later in the gym, and then 45 minutes later first working sets taking place. So I'm glad that I'm glad to be back here again. But other than that, it was just another week, and that's something that is something that needs to be understood. Is that often the social media peeps, this publication, that publication, they make it seem like it's super exciting and it's always white knuckling, going hard. No, like most of the time it really just is about going in, getting the work done, and that's why it's super, super important that you just really enjoy what you're doing. So before I peace out, I know for those of you guys who are keeping up with the spreadsheet, a few minor changes. My knees were just not digging that hack squat twice a week, so we're going to start doing it just once a week. My DeLorean leg press, hammer strength unilateral leg press, I call it the DeLorean because it looks like the Back to the Future car. We're bringing this thing back. It's unilateral, so I'm like, hey, it'll be pretty good, and it's a nice little break from that movement, and I'm pretty good at this movement. One of my favorite leg presses, like the feel of it is just amazing, and once you get the hang of it, it's like you'll never do a Bulgarian split squat again. Not that they're the exact same thing, but this is how I prefer, at least at this point, to get my unilateral leg work in. So that was one of the changes, and then I think we're doing the reverse hyper. And check out my boy Joaquim here. Look at that progressive overload using the micro plates. Iron Prodigy's changing. It's a bro gym, but it's becoming sophisticated, bro. So this is the other change. I'm not gonna be doing my wide stance squat just because, especially in this gym, it's kind of hard to get a hold of a squat rack, and I'd much rather let the real serious powerlifters take over. So I'm gonna do this as like my direct glute work. So what about that angle, right? Do it for the likes, right? So if you enjoy this, do like the video. I hear that's good for the videos. And again, thank you guys for joining me again. Next week we'll actually have some highlights because that's how it's scheduled, and it will be less about just kind of showing up, putting your head down and working. But I appreciate you guys joining me. We will talk next week, same place, same-ish time.